Independent initiation. Don't prompt. Wait to see if the skill occurs at an acceptable level of proficiency. Give people, this is a key instructional strategy, by the way, give people an opportunity to struggle. I can't say that loud enough. I didn't say give them an opportunity to fail. Please don't get those two things confused. It is amazing how often people will surprise you with what they're capable of doing if you don't just run to their beck and call. Give them an opportunity. The guy who's trying to get the cap off the toothpaste tube, and you see him and he keeps going in the wrong direction with him. Give him a moment. Let him see if he can figure it out. Don't be their frontal lobe. Don't have to come to people's rescue right away. And when you do come to their aid, don't give any more assistance than is needed. Just enough to allow them to continue. And it is stated there. When it comes to verbal prompting, which is a good segue here, utilize a hierarchy of verbal prompts. Don't give the individual any more verbal information than they need in order to complete the task. Do not be their frontal lobe. Do not think for the person. Example. See, Bob just got up from the table and he left his plate on the table. So maybe now we need to say, did you forget something? Ask a probing question. Bob, did you forget something? He's thinking. You know, I am quite convinced that the lack of self-initiation that we see in many of the people we support, what appears to be severe difficulty in taking independent action, is less a function of their neurological challenges than it is of the learned helplessness that we created in their life. Many of these folks seem to always be waiting for us to tell them what to do. And you'll see this in adolescents who are typical adolescents, who may not even have any physical or intellectual limitations. The only time they'll pick their dirty clothes up off the floor is when mom says, can you get your dirty clothes up off the floor? They're waiting for the prompt. See, my hair is combed, and direct the because by the way, the issue with Bob is Bob came out and his hair was all messed up. I first said, Bob, didn't get it. Then I said, did you forget something, Bob? Hoping that he would realize he came out and didn't comb his hair. And then I'd say, see, Bob, my hair is combed. Ah, maybe now he'll get it. When all else fails, put them all together. Bob, did you forget something? See, my hair is combed. And if that really doesn't work, Bob, you probably need to comb your hair if we have to go to that level. Let's talk about prompt fading. As the person performs correctly, provide progressively less intrusive prompts. Intrusive prompt is what? Hand over hand, physical assistance through the task. Gentle physical redirection, pushing, nudging the individual's hand. That's a less intrusive prompt. And as the person learns, we want to be less intrusive. Jenny, can I borrow you again so we can do a quick demonstration? And we'll pretend with Jenny that this is mealtime. Over here, Jenny. And Jenny has difficulty in picking her spoon up and bringing it to her mouth. One of the tricks, and there's a number of tricks that we can use to help Jenny become more independent, is I may have a very wonderful face. See this face? She will learn nothing from it. It's not my face I want her to look at. What do I want her to look at? I want her to look at her hand, her spoon, and her food. So thus, if I'm here, when you're in front of somebody, we all have a tendency to look up at the people who are in front of us. So logic tells me I don't want to be here if I want her to look here, so I'm going to move back here. The other reason I'm going to move back here is you perhaps have seen on television, or maybe you've had the good fortune to be at one of these places, where they do experiments and research with very dangerous viruses or radioactive materials, and they have those thick pieces of glass, and the researcher puts their hands in through these special holes with those rubber gloves, and they turn these devices. They're like automatic or robotic arms, and with every turn of the wrist, there's a corresponding move in the robotic arm. You all know what I mean? Okay. Think that way. That's the way you need to be thinking. Because I am now going to pretend that Jenny's arm is an extension, I'm going to assume, and it's an assumption that she's right-handed even though I'm left, that her arm, you're left-handed? Oh, we'll use your right hand anyways. There's that her arm, I'm left too, that her arm is an extension of my arm. And if she cannot hold her spoon, I will put the spoon in her hand, put my hand over her hand, and at any point in which I feel she continues this movement forward, Bear in mind, there's probably some motivation here on her behalf. She wants the food in her mouth. But at any point, if she can hold on to it, I probably will only put my finger here. You see how my finger is here? And once the spoon is in her mouth, let's say it's in her mouth and she's eating, I let go. And if it just sort of stays there, then I'll guide her hand back, letting go at any point that I can. I'm also thinking about bringing my hand up her arm. This is called graduated guidance, okay? The layperson's term is hand over hand. But it's not really a good descriptor because it's not really hand over hand. Because I'm constantly thinking about bringing my hand up her arm. Because as she's getting more independent, I'm now going to put my hand here. By putting my hand here, I'm less intrusive than having my hand here. Because when I'm here, this implies that she now has the capability of holding on to the spoon. I want to get to the point where I can be here and perhaps only occasionally put my hand on her shoulder as the prompt for her to bring it to her mouth. There's some serious questions I have to ask when I do this. First question is, she may have a very difficult time engaging in an appropriate grasp to hold on to the spoon. I may end up spending the next 4 months engaged in this kind of behavior to teach her to hold on to the spoon. And still, perhaps, I may not be successful. Not because she cannot learn it, but because I was not using the most appropriate instructional approach. So I have an option. Rather than me spending all this time trying to teach her to hold on to the spoon, could I not get an adaptive spoon that perhaps has a Velcro strap so that she can get on with life? But if I give her the adaptive spoon with the Velcro strap and I stop doing this, she may have to end up using the adaptive spoon with the Velcro strap for the rest of her life versus me expending the time and effort to do this. It's not a question that you can answer before the fact. You answer it on an individual basis and say, well, what is in that person's best interest? Do I give them an adaptive device? Or do I teach them, how to become more independent? The truth is, they also sell special mechanical plates. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They go around in a circle. They sit like on a turntable. And there's a spoon that goes down, literally brings up the food to the person's mouth. They eat it. With their head, they trip a little trigger, and the spoon goes back down and brings up food. Well, I could give the person that, but if I gave them that, then they may be dependent upon that for the rest of their life, which may be okay, but it's a tough decision to make. Thank you very much, Jenny. It's a tough decision to make on whether I'm going to teach the person a new skill or whether I'm going to provide them with an adaptive device that will allow them just to get on with it. And we face that dilemma a lot. Sometimes we do shoe tying programs, right? You teach people how to tie their shoes. Well, at what point do you say, enough of this already? Why don't we just get them shoes with Velcro straps so they can put them on independently and move on? There's a lot of things you have to learn. I can't answer that question. You have to answer that question.